What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Here we are with another reaction. In this, we have these two cities used to be the same. Before we dive in, if you guys happen to enjoy, please don't forget to smash that subscribe button. Give the video a thumbs up. Also, if you like to support this channel by becoming a member, all you gotta do is hit that join button to receive your exclusive benefits. Now let's dive in.
I recently made a video about self-driving cars, and in it I compared my hometown in Canada to a similarly sized city here in the Netherlands. I wanted to take that segment out and talk about it here in its own video. Partially because it was 43 minutes through an almost hour-long video, so I'm not going to be upset if you missed it. But also because I think it deserves further discussion outside of the context of autonomous vehicles. Because while it may seem crazy to compare a car-centric city in Canada to this beautiful walkable city in the Netherlands, when you look at the history of these two places, you'll find they have a lot more in common than you think.
Really?
I grew up in a car-dependent city called London, Ontario, Canada. And despite its Thames River, Oxford Street, and Covent Garden Market, it's nothing like real London. A kind of fake London, if you will. When I arrive in fake London by train, I'm on the side of a high-speed strode across from a surface parking lot. There isn't much left of downtown, and my only option to get anywhere is a taxi. The city is very spread out and designed almost exclusively for cars.
Yeah.
Bus service is highly unreliable and slow, and there is no way I would feel safe enough to ride a bike here.
Nah.
And there are regular news stories about people being killed in car crashes, even when
Killing 8-year-old in London, sentenced to house arrest?
they're on the sidewalk.
Wow.
I have to drive pretty much everywhere to do pretty much anything, which I gotta say kinda sucks. I left fake London as soon as I was old enough, and I moved to various different cities and countries before ultimately moving our family to the Netherlands, where we plan to stay indefinitely.
Got you.
Which brings me to Utrecht. Utrecht is a city in the middle of the Netherlands, and I have to go there fairly regularly for one reason or another.
Got you.
The population is very similar to that of fake London, but otherwise these cities are very, very different. So you're probably thinking that it's almost comical to compare Utrecht to London, right? It seems ridiculous because these cities have almost nothing in common. And yet, 100 years ago, they were pretty similar. Sure, the architecture was different, but the fundamental design of the city was pretty comparable. Both were compact, walkable cities full of mixed-use neighborhoods and connected by streetcars, because both cities were founded long before automobiles were invented. Over the 20th century, both cities embraced the automobile, and both cities built wide roads and highways. Utrecht filled in a canal in their city center and turned it into a highway. And London bulldozed a neighborhood to build a wide road straight into downtown.
Oh, wow.
Both cities even bulldozed part of their city center to build a suburban-style shopping mall, and these malls were both the first of their kind in their respective countries.
Oh.
Utrecht was about a decade behind London, but otherwise these cities were on exactly the same path. That is, until about the 1990s, when Utrecht decided to change course due to growing concerns about the negative impact of car-centric development. They made a fundamental decision to make the city friendly to people walking and cycling, to reduce car traffic, and to create greener public spaces.
That's wild to just like shift course like that. They was like, I'm not liking the path that this is headed down. So you know what? I want to be able to make it safe for those who are walking, those who are cycling. I don't want our city to be too car-centric like those countries in North America. Don't want that. And I'm guessing London in Canada was like, we're just going to keep down this path.
The highway around the city center was turned back into a canal.
Dang. That's
You'd never know that this used to be a highway.
Ever.
And today, that downtown shopping center is connected directly to a new train station via a pedestrianized area, and closely integrated with the rest of the city center on the other side. It's such an incredible difference to arrive in this place by train compared to fake London.
I can
Despite having
imagine.
almost the same population as my hometown, it hosts the busiest train station in the Netherlands, transporting over 200,000 people per day, with over 1,000 daily departures to national and international
Oh, a
destinations.
thousand?
Incidentally, the fake London train station has just 10 departures per day.
That's
There are hundreds of destinations within walking distance of the station, and there are great connections to other forms of public transit, including this new tram system. London had plans to build a new tram line a few
of
years ago, but it was cancelled, in part
course.
because people believed that this city of 400,000 people was too small for a tram line, even though it had one 100 years ago. Underneath the train station in Utrecht is the world's largest bicycle parking garage with spaces for over 12,000 bicycles.
That is.
And I can pick up one of the hundreds of rental bicycles
Oh
using
my
my
God.
transit card and cycle to any destination. I can cycle anywhere I want, quickly and easily, and because of the high quality infrastructure, I never feel unsafe.
I love
It also
that.
helps that car volumes are low and so are the speed limits. Near the train station is this street accessible only to walking, cycling, and public transit. This is one of the busiest cycling paths in the world, and I probably
Oh
see
my
more people cycling in
dang.
5 minutes here than I have in my entire life in fake London.
Yeah, that's insane, bro. It's literally nonstop. Like, so many people say, like, this is what, in a big city in North America, this is what traffic looks like, but with cars. But this is traffic with bikes here in Utrecht. God dang.
Walking around the city is also convenient and comfortable. The streets are lined with interesting shops and restaurants, and there isn't a surface parking lot in sight anymore. There are many nice residential neighborhoods, and it's remarkably
Oh,
quiet too, because as I've realized over the years, cities aren't loud, cars are loud. There isn't a lot of
probably a good point.
traffic because there are viable alternatives to driving. People aren't forced to drive here, so the only people in cars are those who need to drive or those who really want to drive.
Got you.
Utrecht has many places that are off limits to cars, but motor vehicles are still extremely useful sometimes. So access is still provided for delivery trucks, emergency vehicles, and people with disabilities. I've been constantly told that we need to design for cars because of families, the disabled, or the elderly. And yet I see all of those people getting around just fine. Because universal access to mobility isn't a fundamental issue, it's a problem caused by car dependency. Would this guy be better off in a car? Maybe. I didn't ask him. But it's not like he's unable to get around independently.
They said maybe. I didn't ask him. Would he be better off in a car? He might have just enjoyed getting around like that. You feel me? Like, he probably enjoyed being able to get out and about, getting his exercise in every single day. Like, that might be nice for him.
Here, like would be the case where I'm from. Now, Utrecht isn't perfect, and the city still shows the scars of that 1960s car centric development.
Mm.
But it is a city that is improving rapidly. It seems like every time I go there, there's some new project underway to make the city better. If you'd like to learn more, the channel Bicycle Dutch regularly
Mm.
makes videos about the improvements happening in Utrecht, and I'll leave a link in the description. Now, the immediate question that this comparison raises in the minds of most Canadians and Americans is, what should I do to repair my North American city? And the short answer is, join your local advocacy group or Strongtown's local conversation. Advocacy is local. The best way to repair your city entirely depends on where you live, the factors that affect your neighborhood, and ultimately, how much damage was done by car infrastructure. The correct approach for, say, a German living in Berlin would be completely different than an American living in Phoenix,
Of course.
which is why you shouldn't be getting your advice from YouTubers, Instagrammers, or TikTokers. You should be talking to your local advocacy groups.
Got you.
What I wouldn't recommend, though, is to blindly try to replicate what the Dutch did in the 1970s.
What y'all
First
do?
of all, the Dutch protests were not unique. For
Mm.
example, there's a lot of talk in urbanist circles
Oh.
about the Stop de Kindermoord protests in the Netherlands in the 1970s, when parents were angry that children were being killed by cars. But you
Mm.
hear almost nothing about the baby carriage blockades in the 1940s and 1950s in the
Oh,
United
wow.
States that were done for exactly the same reason.
Really? Definitely don't hear nothing about this. I thought US everywhere was down with cars from the jump. Like, and wow, this is news to me for sure.
The internet is full of these images of Amsterdam in the 60s versus Amsterdam today. The ones by Thomas Schleiper in particular are really great. And if your goal is to convince people that it is possible for cities to change for the better, as Brent often does, then this is fine, of course. But it's good to keep in mind that these images can be misleading and possibly even counterproductive when it comes to actually improving North American cities. I hate this image of Zeilstraat in Amsterdam in particular, especially when it's paired up with some nice street in Amsterdam today. Because, for one, this was an unusually large traffic jam, likely because this bridge was open during rush hour. But more importantly, because Zaalstraat is almost exactly the same today, and it still sucks. There are certainly more people who cycle here than 40 years ago, and that's important, but the design of the street hasn't improved at all. I talked about this street 3 years ago in my most dangerous places to cycle in Amsterdam video, and it's one of the only streets I talked about that hasn't been improved since then. Like, seriously, Van Vouwstraat was also featured in that same video, but it's been recently blocked off to through traffic, and the design is much better. It's genuinely nice to be on this street now.
That is
This
amazing.
image is actually accurate, though. This really does show a legitimate before and after of Eerste van der Heilstraat in De Pijp in Amsterdam. But this brings me to my next
Oh,
issue with these images, because when people online talk about Amsterdam in the 1970s, they almost exclusively talk about peaceful protest, which completely ignores the fact that a lot of the protests were not peaceful.
oh my
The
day.
reason Amsterdam is as nice as it is today is because people literally fought for it, like got in fistfights in the streets. I've received a lot of criticism from American advocates, especially, that the tone of my YouTube videos is inappropriate and that I need to be nicer.
That's
Which,
crazy. Ah, from American advocates, why wouldn't they just don't watch the videos if you don't agree with his tone or agree with the? I feel like he's definitely for bikes and against cars, but and he makes good points when he brings up these conversations. It's not like he's just saying it without evidence. Like he brings up good points, he brings up evidence, he brings up stuff to back up exactly what he's saying. So him needing to say it nicer shouldn't be an issue.
which makes me laugh every time, because I imagine the response from those same people if I said that they should try flipping cars on their side, spray painting car free on them, and using them to block the street. Because protests like that are why Ferdinand Bolstraat in De Pijp is almost completely car free today.
Hey,
Would I advocate for that? I mean, it would be really funny. But I'm not convinced that this approach would work in the North America
nah,
of today.
it wouldn't.
The
It
truth
definitely
is
wouldn't.
that the Dutch approach worked for many reasons. Some of it because of the tireless work of advocates and protesters, but also for economic, social, and political reasons, as well as good timing. Most notably, the oil crisis of the 1970s, where the government was forced to institute mandatory car-free days.
Oh,
If you're
really?
actually interested in this, there is this great paper that goes into more detail, link in the
Car
description.
free day.
And I think it's important to understand this context, because the North America of today is nothing like the Netherlands of the 1970s. There is a fundamental difference between fighting to keep your traditional neighborhood from being destroyed by car infrastructure versus trying to repair your city when downtown has been bulldozed to build surface parking lots,
I feel
nobody has
that.
been allowed to live there for years due to exclusionary zoning, urban
Mm.
sprawl has been the
Oh
only
wow.
legal type of development for decades, public transportation is nearly useless, almost every household owns multiple pickup trucks or SUVs,
Yeah.
and there is no one left alive who remembers what the city was like before it was overrun by cars. Which is
Right.
why I don't make videos about how Amsterdam became bike-friendly. I make videos about strong towns and how car-dependent American-style suburbia is dangerous, unhealthy, financially insolvent, and in general, just a shitty way to live. So if
I
you
feel
live
you.
in North America and you want your city to improve, then join Strong Towns and find a local safe streets or urbanist advocacy group in your city.
I
Because
just feel like I understand what he's saying, and I feel him like it probably would be safer to do things kind of how they do things in the Netherlands. I just don't think it'll happen here in North America, in the United States for sure, but in North America in general, I just can't see it being implemented. And I'm just so used to driving cars at this point that I wouldn't know how to switch. I wouldn't know how to change. But I guess when you think about that next generation, it does make you want to make a difference for them. So they live in a safer world, in a safer place. So yeah, I completely get where he's coming from.
they certainly exist, and they know a lot more about your neighborhood than some YouTuber. From there, you can do the second most important thing, which is to attend community engagement meetings about the changes happening in your area. This is important because otherwise the only people there will be a bunch of cranky boomers who only showed up because they have literally nothing better to do than to complain about parking. But beyond that, I'm not going to make any more specific recommendations because fundamentally, Not Just Bikes is not an advocacy channel.
I feel
I
that.
was an advocate for many years, but that life is behind me now. Plus, about 2/3 of my audience isn't even from the US or Canada, and they have limited interest in American centric topics.
Understandable.
If that's the kind of content you want, that's great, but you should probably be watching a channel like Strong Towns if you want to learn more about North American advocacy. I'll put a link to their channel in the description. Now, despite the fact that I'm not personally interested in making American advocacy videos, I have heard from literally hundreds of people who were encouraged to become advocates because of my channel, and
Oh
I love
wow,
that. And Strong Towns have told me that Not Just Bikes has been a major source of new members for them, which is amazing.
that is
I've even
dope.
had a significant number of people tell me that they've decided to study urban planning because of my videos, which
What?
I must admit makes me a little bit nervous because I've never studied urban planning or worked as an urban planner, so I'm not really
Oh,
sure what it's like to actually do that job. But then
that's really cool though to see how his videos have inspired so many people in so many different ways. Like that's really dope.
I remember reading that enrollment into archaeology programs spiked after the first Indiana Jones movie was released, and I suspect that those people were in for much more of a shock than any of my fans will be.
100%.
From the very beginning of this channel, I did not want to be prescriptive. I don't know who you are, I don't know what your situation is, so I don't want to tell you what to do. My main goal with this channel has always been to talk about my personal experiences in cities.
Understandable.
I enjoy making videos about great cities, talking about what makes them great and why I believe that they are better places to live. What you do with that information is really up to you. If you watch my videos and decide to become an advocate, that's great. The world needs more people like you. If you decide to move to a more walkable neighborhood nearby, fantastic. If you decide to pack up everything and take off to another country as I did, that's great too. And if you decide to collapse on the couch and cry yourself to sleep, well, personally, I think you should do something more productive with your limited time on this earth, but hey, you do you.
I
I have to admit though,
agree.
whenever I come back to my hometown, I get pretty upset. I think back to the photos of what it used to look like, and I feel like I was robbed.
Mm,
Because I was. We
mm.
all were. Car infrastructure destroyed our cities. When I grew up, I couldn't wait to get out of fake London, to move somewhere better. And I spent so much of my life moving from place to find the one that was right for me. And when I finally found it, I wanted to share that knowledge with others so that they wouldn't have to spend as much time as I did to find their perfect place to live. Which is why the very first scene of the very first video on this channel was, "This is the video I wish I could have seen 20 years ago, as it would have saved me a lot of time figuring out where I wanted to live."
That's no, because I had seen those videos all the way back. So I literally in any of his videos, I'd never even seen his face. So it's really cool that I actually get to see the face behind the
Just
channel.
here, in the Netherlands. And yet, that perfect place could have been the place I was born. But they destroyed it so that suburbanites had somewhere to park. The citizens of Utrecht were lucky in that they were able to stop the damage before it could go too far. Because while cities can improve, the sad fact is that, barring some fundamental restructuring of our society, London will never be as good as Utrecht in my lifetime. And
That's
there's not
total.
much I can do about that. But what I can do is to show people how life can be better in cities designed for people. One genuinely good thing, though, is that there's a lot more quality urbanist content online than when I was learning these things. I often recommend City Beautiful, a professor of urban planning with a talent for teaching. City Nerd, a planner and engineer who masterfully delivers deadpan humor in highly researched videos.
Oh, I
And
like
RM
that.
Transit, a transportation consultant who knows more about public transit than anybody I've ever met. But there are many others that you'll discover as soon as the almighty algorithm finds out you like trains.
Facts.
If you're a Nebula subscriber, there's a whole section dedicated to urbanism that includes urbanist creators, but also individual videos by other creators
Oh,
about
wow.
urbanist topics. And if you
Yo.
can, I'd really encourage you to watch these videos on Nebula because it directly supports the creators. This isn't an advertisement or a paid sponsorship, this is just fact.
I feel
I
that.
would not be able to afford to make the videos that I do if it wasn't for the support that I get from Nebula. I have a Patreon page as well, and if you prefer Patreon, that's great, but I generally try to promote Nebula because I just think it's a better deal for my viewers.
Okay.
Because when you sign up to Nebula, you support this channel, but you also get access to the videos of over 200 other talented creators,
Oh,
all
wow.
without any ads or sponsorships. And there's a
That's pretty
growing
dope.
library of Nebula Originals videos that are only available on Nebula. I recently teamed up with some very talented comedians to make a new comedy urbanism channel called I Love the City.
That's. I know. Now we're starting to get into. I think he's done with the two cities used to be the same. The topic of the video, but it's pretty cool. The fact that the Dutch citizens were like, we gonna protest and we gonna flip cars and we gonna do whatever it takes until we get things to change. And that's exactly what happened. They continued to protest and they continued to keep going until change happened. We're in London and Canada. They did some protests and stuff, but Canada, I guess, was just like, yeah, these streets are going to be made for cars, and you're just going to have to deal with it. Period, point blank. And that's how it is in North America. But as an American who's used to growing up with cars and driving everywhere, it doesn't bother me. Like, this is what I'm used to. This is what's normal for me. And so, a city where everybody's cycling and walking, which, while maybe a lot safer, I mean, from his research, is a lot safer. So, and I haven't researched it, so I'm gonna go off what he say. It's not something I'm used to, but if that's the way the city went, then I would have to get used to it. That's all we got, though. If you guys enjoyed, don't forget to subscribe, get a video a thumbs up, check out the next